Rambam. We are learning the laws of offerings, tmidim, the continuous daily offerings. We're in chapter 6. So the following is the order of the continuous daily offerings brought each day. Shortly before dawn, right? This is the morning service, right? So shortly before dawn, the supervisor in charge of the lotteries comes and knocks gently on the gates of the temple courtyard. They are opened for him, and an inspection is made of the temple courtyard. The bakers of the chavitim are aroused to prepare the chavitim. Chavitim is the offering of the high priest that he gives every day. Right? All of the kohanim there will be already immersed, will have already immersed themselves before the supervisor who comes and garbs themselves in the priestly garments. Right, so they're woken up. Right, it starts the inspection of the temple courtyard. Bakers are ready to prepare. All the kohanim have gone to the mikvah. They've garbed themselves. They come and stand in the chamber of hewn stone and carry out the first and second lottery. And the kohanim who merited are designated to perform their services, as we explained. That was yesterday. The one who merited to remove the ashes from the outer altar begins removing them according to the procedure we described, right? That's the first lottery that's won, is to remove the ashes. Afterwards, he arranges the large array of wood on the altar. Then he arranges the second array, as they had 3 pyres of fire on the altar. The altar was quite big. It was 32 by 32, amma, hand's breadth. I think was it 32? I'm trying to remember now. It's a pretty large size. So then he brings up 2 logs of wood and places them on the array to increase the fire. Afterwards, they enter the chamber of utensils and remove all the utensils that are necessary for the entire day. They give the lamb to be sacrificed as a continuous offering a drink of water, right? Why do they do that? Because afterwards, after you slaughter it, it makes it easier to take off the skin, to skin it. The one who merited this the slaughter, to slaughter it pulls it to the butchering area, which is up here. Okay, the northern part. This is the northern part, right? This is the courtyard. Here's the altar, right? So this is all of the kohanim who merited to take limbs up to the ram follow him and wait there until they open the grand gate of the sanctuary. Because they can't start the service until that point. When the gate is open, the lamb to be sacrificed as a continued offering is slaughtered. Afterwards, the kohanim, 2 kohanim, enter the sanctuary. One is merited to remove the ashes, the inner altar, right? The outer altar, the ashes were removed already, but now in the inner altar inside here, right? That's in the holies. That's where the altar is, right? Over there. And the other merited to remove the ashes from the menorah. Both have ashes. The one who removes the ashes from the altar should do that at the same time as the slaughterer slaughters the lamb to be offered as a continuous offering. Afterwards, the person who receives its blood dashes it on the altar. All right, takes the blood in a vessel and brings it to the altar, the outer altar, and dashes it there. After the blood is dashed on the altar, the second kohen in the sanctuary kindles 5 lamps, right? And both of them leave the sanctuary, right? The one who cleaned off the golden altar from its ashes, and the one now who just lit. The kohen in the butchering area skinned the lamb and cut it into portions. Each one brings the lamb which he merited to the ramp. The ramp, meaning over here, there's a ramp that goes up to the altar, right? And we learned that, there were, uh, we learned all these details. There's so many details here, it's hard to remember. How many was it that maybe I'll say here? I don't remember now. The limbs are placed in the lower half of the western portion of the ramp. The portions of the animal sacrifices as additional offerings are placed on the lower half of the eastern portion of the ramp. Those of the Rosh Chodesh are placed on the top of the altar between the horns, in place where the Kohen walks to publicize that it's Rosh Chodesh. When is Rosh Chodesh, the new month, right? They salt the limbs. They also salt the ramp, even on Shabbos, so that the Kohanim will not slip and fall while bringing wood up the ramp. Although the salt intervenes between the Kohen's feet and the ramp, it is not a concern, since carrying the wood is not of the temple service. They went barefoot, right? They couldn't have anything interfere between them and the stones, right? They couldn't have anything intervene. Even if we learned earlier, if you remember, we learned, I don't know, 10 days ago or so, we learned that even if they were on a stone and it was shaky, they couldn't do the service there because it has to be firm, that stone that they're standing upon to do the service, right? Um, so yet the salt, excuse me, was not considered an issue because bringing the wood at that point, they already brought the limbs. That was a mitzvah, and they already did, right? They salted afterwards that they shouldn't slip. Okay, halacha number 4. After the limbs are brought to the ram, all of the kohanim gather to the chamber of hewn stone, and the supervisor tells them, hold on. Where are you? Ah, here, over here. Okay, that's the chamber of the hewn stone.
Which is partly protruding.
Yeah, it's partially protruding. It's part. No, hold on.
There's an explanation for that. Why it had to protrude.
Yeah. So this is the steps where the Levites, the Kohanim were Israelites who only went this far. So it's like it straddles the both, right? Okay. So, and the supervisor tells them, recite one blessing. They began the recitation of blessing, Avaselam. Hava Selam is the prayer that we say before the Shema. Right. Then they would recite the Ten Commandments, then the passage of the Shema. Interesting. And the passage of Vahayim Shemoya, which is the second paragraph of the Shema, which is this week's Torah portion, right? We're going to have it. It's actually tomorrow, in tomorrow's Chumash and Rashi. And the passage of Vayim. That's the third passage of the Shema about tzitzis, right? And then we have the Emes V'Yatziv. This is all the morning service. This is like the morning service, right? And the blessing of Ritzei, B'Sim Shalom. Ritzei is when we do the bowing and by the third bowing in the Shemona Esrei, and Sim Shalom, the last blessings. So it's the last blessings of the Amida. Interesting. Just a reminder that the way we pray today is in replacing the offerings. The offerings on the altar, they didn't pray as much as we did. The mitzvah the biblical commandment was to pray when you have a need, right? The Shemona Esrei, the Amida, is not a biblical law. It's rabbinic, right? Very interesting. Okay, in Shabbos, another blessing is added, is recited by the members of the priestly watch that depart to the members of the watch that enter, because the new watch begins on Shabbos. May who causes his name to rest on the house cause love, brotherhood, peace, and friendship to rest among you. Afterwards, they hold the third and fourth lotteries. The Kohanim who merit to offer the incense enters the sanctuary and offers it. Afterwards, one who merited to remove the ashes of the menorah enters and kindles two lights, because only two candles, because 5 was lit before, and now 2. This was to extend the mitzvah. The kohen who offered the incense and the one who removed the ashes of the menorah depart and stand on the steps of the entrance hall together with his priestly brethren. Wow. When the kohen who offered the incense reaches the area between the entrance hall and the altar, this is the entrance hall and this is the altar, right? So this is in between. A kohen takes a rake and throws it between the entrance hall and the altar. It made a loud noise. It served 3 purposes. One who heard it sound would know that the priestly brethren were entering the sanctuary to prostrate themselves, and would also run and go. Second thing, the Levite who heard the sound would know that the Levitical brethren were gathering to begin the singing that accompanied the offerings, and he would run and go. All right, they'd all go run to their place to do what they got to do. The third thing is when the head of the Maimed heard the sound, he would have the impure people stand at the eastern gate because of the suspicion, so that everyone should know that they had not brought their atonement offerings as of yet. The height of the Maimed was those for the Israelites, right, who had come, who were standing in this area over here, right, before the steps where the Levites would stand, right, and sing. That people were impure, they'd have to be by the eastern gate. Hold on, make sure I have this clear. The gate of Nicanor, which is over here. Right. In other words, they be standing not in the Israelite section because the offerings are being made and they're not yet in a complete pure status, right? and that everyone should know that they are not brought their atonement offerings as of yet. Afterwards, the Kohen who merited to bring up the limbs brings the limbs up the ramp to the altar, but it's full of salt. After the limbs are brought up, I guess because they're already partially up there. I don't know. Okay. Standing on the steps of the entrance hall, began to recite the priestly blessings as one blessing, reciting God's explicit name, which is not Amonai, right? But it's the Yud Kei Vav Kei, like the J witnesses, right? That name they would recite as explained in the appropriate place. I think that was only in the first Holy Temple. In the second one, they didn't recite that name anymore. They weren't sufficiently holy to do that. Afterwards, they bring the flour of the accompanying offerings to the altar. After the flour, they offer right, because accompanying with the lamb was also, we had that in the previous chapters. Then there was the chavitim on the pyre. The chavitim was what the high priest would bring, a daily offering. After the chavitim, they would offer the wine libation. After the wine is being poured, wine libation is you pour it on the side of the altar, right? And it had a funnel there that it would funnel underneath and go through a stream that went under there, and it went outside of Jerusalem, or outside of at least Temple Mount. While the wine was being poured, the Levites recite song and the musicians play on the various instruments in the temple. 9 tekiyos, blasts of the shofar, sounded during the bars of the song. Wow, imagine how awesome this must have been. Hard to imagine. And everything's happening very precise.
Very precise. Like clockwork.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. When they would give the wine to the Kohen, who would perform the libation, there were two Kohanim holding two trumpets in their hands, who would stand on the table where the fats were placed. The Sigan stands on the corner of the altar with flags in his hands. When he waves them, they would sound tekiah, trua, tekiah, tekiah, trua, or ta 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 ta. It's a question of which one it is. That's what we do both for the trua, and then tekiah again, the long blast, right? The Kohanim with the trumpets would stand next to the Kohen who was placed in charge of the cymbals, one at his right and one at his left. When the Kohen who offered the libation bent down to pour it, the Sigan would wave the flags. The Kohen with the cymbals would sound them, and the others would sound the trumpets. The Levites began singing. When they reached the end of the bar, the Kohen would sound the trumpets, and all the people in the courtyard would prostrate themselves. At the conclusion of every bar of the song, they would sound the trumpets, and at every trumpet sounding, the people would prostrate themselves. There was a total of 9 trumpet blasts sounded by the continuous offering, as we've explained. Song is recited only over the communal burnt offerings and the peace offerings which are mentioned in the Torah. Song is not recited over a free will burnt offering, right? Right, that's personal. That are offered for the remaining funds of the temple collection. Actually, they're not. They're extra ones, and they are communal offering. They're communal, even though they're communal offerings, but they're extra. They're not like the daily offering, because it says that the altar should always be busy with offerings. So it's, the communal funds would fund, these continuous offerings. Similarly, with the additional offerings are brought independently, song is not recited over them. That's because that's independent. Number 9, these are the songs that Levites recite. On Sunday, we recite the earth and its fullness. By the way, this is what we recite today, right? Hayom Yom, Brisha and Shabbat Shabbos. This is the first day of the week, right? On page, I think 72, it's the first song of the day that the Levites would say. This is it. What I announce all the time, right? So Psalm 24, on Monday they would recite, God is great and exceedingly praised in the city of the Lord. Psalm 48, Tuesday they would recite, God stands in council of the judges among the judges, he delivers judgment. Psalm 82. On Wednesday, we recite, the Lord is God of retribution, God of retribution, reveal yourself, 94. On Thursday, today, they would recite, raise joyous song to God, our strength, sound the shofar to the God of Jacob, 81. On Friday, they would recite, God is king, he clothes himself in grandeur, God is robed himself, he has girded himself with strength, 93. On Shabbos, it would be song of the Shabbos day, 92. For Musaf offering on Shabbos, the song Hazinu is recited, right? What's Hazinu? The crossing of the sea. No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's in Deuteronomy 32. It's recited. It is divided into 6 segments. Haziv Lach, just as we read in synagogue, one segment is recited each Shabbos. One of the 6 there, it's over 6 weeks. After the song is completed for the 6 Sabbaths, they would return to the beginning. In the afternoon, on the Shabbos, they would recite from Then Moses sang Az Yashir, and who was like, for Musaf offering of Rosh Chodesh, they would recite Raise joyous song to God our strength. If Rosh Chodesh fell on a Thursday, we recite, I removed I've removed the shoulder from the burden. And the afternoon of Rosh Hashanah, they were recitation, and the voice of God causes the desert to tremble. Number 10, the Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos. The song of Rosh Chodesh takes priority over that of Shabbos. In order to publicize the day is Rosh Chodesh. Halacha number 11, on Shabbos, the 2 bowls of frankincense are offered on the altar's pyre together with the additional offerings before the wine libation that accompanied those offerings. This is on Shabbos now, not the daily, which we learned earlier. The order that was followed for the sacrifice offered in the morning is followed to the sacrifice offered in the afternoon, and the exception is the removal of the ashes after from the outer altar. On the altar, the arrangement of the arrays of the wood on the altar and the lotteries that are only performed each day in the morning, as we have explained. Okay, let's just do the first one in number 7, which is on Rosh Chodesh. Additional offering Rosh Chodesh is offering continuous offering of the morning. What does the additional offering Rosh Chodesh comprise? 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 sheep. All are burnt offerings. The goat is brought as a sin offering. Okay, amazing. All right, glad that we got that.
Where the reference was made of the congregation was frustrated.
Yeah.
Was that the time when the miracle occurred? That they were all compact together, yet when they found there was enough space for everyone. Was it?
I think that I don't think that's speaking of daily. I think that's speaking on holidays. Okay. When you're making the pilgrimage, when you're making Aliyah, Laregel, so then it was really packed on a daily basis. Not necessarily it was so packed.
Okay.
Right? Good question. All right, folks. Thank you.